Have you ever wondered what could happen if you stopped settling for less? If you raised your standards and started living the life you know you're capable of? Today we're diving deep into the power of setting higher standards for yourself and how it can transform your life in ways you've never imagined. What if I told you that the secret to unlocking your full potential is already within you, waiting for you to take control and level up? We all have a version of ourselves that's capable of greatness, but most of us don't tap into it. Today, let's change that together. Are you ready to stop making excuses and start making progress? Let's talk about the life-changing power of raising your standards. We're often told to be content with where we are, but what if that's the biggest trap we can fall into? It's time to break free and elevate your life. What would happen if you stopped tolerating mediocrity and started demanding excellence from yourself? Let's explore the power of setting new standards. Raising your standards, the key to transformation. There is an invisible threshold in your life, a line that defines everything you accept, tolerate, and settle for. This line represents your standards. It's not determined by your hopes, dreams, or conversations, but by what you consistently allow, do, and accept, even when it's difficult. If you've ever wondered why certain patterns repeat in your life, why you get close to success only to slip back, why some habits never stick, or why similar circumstances and people keep appearing, the answer is simple. Your standards haven't changed. Many people say they want more, they talk about change, but they don't raise their standards. Until they do, nothing will shift. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you're willing to tolerate. You don't achieve your dreams, you achieve what your standards demand. It's easy to have high hopes, write down goals, and discuss big plans, but until your standards shift and until the way you function at your core changes, those goals will remain dreams and the results will stay inconsistent. True transformation will remain out of reach. You can observe this everywhere. Two people can face the same challenges, start with the same resources, and encounter the same obstacles, but one rises while the other does not. One grows while the other stays stuck. One breaks through while the other gives up. What makes the difference? It's their standards. One person has conditioned themselves to expect more, to do more, and to demand more from themselves consistently, not just occasionally. They hold themselves to a level that others only talk about, and because of this, they create better results, not just once, but repeatedly. Your standards are not defined by what you say, but by what you do, especially when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, or when no one is watching. That's when your true standard emerges, and that's where real change takes place. Here's the good news. Standards aren't fixed. They're not written in stone, nor are they hardwired into your DNA. You can raise them. You can decide right now that what you've accepted in the past is no longer acceptable. The person you've been is not who you will continue to be. The things you've tolerated can end here. Once you make the decision to raise your standards and live by them, everything begins to change. Your habits, your energy, your relationships, your confidence, and your results will all reflect your new standard. You don't have to force transformation when your standards shift. New results become automatic. Discipline doesn't require constant effort because you'll be living at a level where old excuses no longer apply. You no longer need to break your limits because you've moved the line entirely. If you want a new life, start by changing what you demand of yourself. Change what you refuse to tolerate and shift your idea of what is normal. The moment your standards change, your life will begin to catch up. The standard you live by becomes the thermostat that determines your life. The power of your internal standards. Your internal standards act as a thermostat, determining the temperature of your life. No matter how high or low things may seem temporarily, you will always return to your set point. You may experience a breakthrough or achieve a big win, but if your internal thermostat remains unchanged, if your standards don't rise, you'll eventually sabotage your progress and slip back into your old habits. This is why people who win the lottery often lose everything. It's why individuals who get in shape sometimes gain the weight back. It's why businesses that are built successfully can collapse. The outer success may change, but if the inner standard doesn't shift, The person's identity hasn't evolved to match their achievements, so they revert to their old level. You cannot outperform your standards for long. You might temporarily rise above them with effort, motivation, or a burst of energy, but without an internal shift, you will inevitably drift back down. This isn't because you're incapable, it's because your identity hasn't adapted. Your beliefs haven't caught up with the new reality, and your standards haven't recalibrated. This is the hidden trap that keeps people stuck. They improve just enough to taste success, but not enough to maintain it. They raise their output, but not their standards, leading to a crash. When this happens, they often begin to doubt themselves. They might think, maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe I don't have what it takes. But the truth is, they do have what it takes. They just haven't locked in the new level of who they are. To truly lock it in, you must upgrade how you see yourself. You need to decide that the way you used to live, the shortcuts, the inconsistencies, the excuses are no longer acceptable. You must draw a line and declare that the old version of you is gone, not someday, but now. This is about more than just achieving goals or doing something impressive. It's about identity. When your standards change, your actions follow. When your identity shifts, your behavior aligns automatically. It becomes second nature. You've raised not only the ceiling of your potential, but the floor of your life. Most people focus on raising the ceiling, asking themselves how high they can go, but they often fail to ask the more critical question, how low am I willing to sink? That question determines the course of your life, not your peak, but your baseline. If your baseline is chaos, struggle, distraction, and inconsistency, you may have moments of success, but they won't last. You'll always return to your baseline, and eventually you'll collapse under the weight of what you've built because you never raised your standards to support the life you're chasing. However, when your standard is excellence, when your baseline is high performance, when your identity is rooted in follow-through and your habits reflect consistency, you don't fall back. You don't lose progress. You don't rely on willpower to maintain discipline. You simply live at a different level. People will start asking how you stay so consistent, how you manage to show up day after day, how you get so much done. The answer will be simple. It's who I am now. Changing your standards starts with a moment of truth, a moment where you look at your life not with judgment or guilt, but with honesty. You assess your patterns and behaviors and decide that it's time to shift. The power of decision and consistency in raising your standards to elevate your life. You need to reflect on what you've been tolerating and ask yourself, is this truly who I want to be? Most people never take the time to ask this question. They remain busy, caught in repetitive patterns, and avoid reflecting on their current standard. As a result, they never confront, challenge, or upgrade their standards. But if you stop and honestly ask yourself this question, you'll feel the gap between who you are and who you could be. That feeling of discomfort is not something to shy away from. It's an invitation, a call to rise. It's your inner voice urging you that you are meant for more. The next step is a decision. You make a new decision about who you are. You tell yourself, from this moment forward, I will no longer tolerate inconsistency, mediocrity, or living at the level of my past. You raise the bar, you raise the floor, and you raise yourself. Once you make this decision, you act. Not next week, not when you feel ready, but now. Action is what makes your new standard real. Action rewires your identity and proves to your brain that something has changed. Your brain needs evidence to believe the shift, and until you take action aligned with your new standard, it will keep pulling you back to old patterns. So you give your brain new evidence. You do what you used to avoid. You follow through when the old version of you would have quit. You execute with clarity and purpose, not because it's easy, but because you've decided this is your new normal. Each time you do this, you reinforce the shift. You tell your nervous system, this is who we are now, and you show your subconscious, this is what we do. The more you do this, the more it becomes natural and effortless. Not because life got easier, but because you grew stronger. Raising your standards is not a one-time decision. It's not something you do once and forget about. It's something you recommit to every single day. Life will test your new standard. It will throw distractions, temptations, and challenges in your way to see if you truly meant what you said. This is where many people falter. They raise their standard for a moment, get inspired, and make a declaration. But when life pushes back, they revert to old patterns. They let one bad day turn into a bad week, and one mistake snowball into a full backslide. It's not because they're weak, but because they haven't built a system to support their new standard. A new standard is only as strong as the structure that supports it. You can't rely on motivation or emotion alone. You need a system, a structure that includes habits, accountability, and rituals to remind you of who you are and what you stand for. For example, if you say you're done tolerating inconsistency, but don't create a daily routine to support consistency, your standard will break under pressure. If you say you're raising the bar on your health, but your kitchen is full of junk food and your schedule doesn't allow time for exercise, the old habits will win. So you need to build around your new identity. Create an environment that reinforces your new standard. Remove the triggers that feed your old patterns. Design your space and calendar to support the life you're striving to live. The role of environment and internal resistance in raising your standards. To raise your standards, it's essential to align your habits and environment with your new level of expectations. This includes the people you surround yourself with. Your standards will naturally rise or fall to the level of your circle. You can't expect to elevate your life while staying surrounded by people who are content with the bare minimum, those who constantly complain, make excuses, or normalize quitting. You need people who challenge your standards, who remind you of your potential, and who hold you accountable to your best self. These are the individuals who won't let you settle for less than what you're capable of achieving. If you don't yet have that kind of circle, you must become that person for yourself. Become your own coach, your own challenger, your own accountability. You set the tone for your environment, because as soon as you raise your standards, your circle will begin to shift. Either the people around you will rise with you, or they will fall away. This is part of the growth process. Growth isn't just about adding new things to your life, it's about subtraction, letting go of habits, mindsets, and sometimes even relationships that no longer serve the new version of you. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity and commitment. As you build your new standard, you will face internal resistance. The voice in your head will try to pull you back, questioning who you think you are, telling you that you're not ready or capable. It might say things like, "You've never done this before," or "It's too late for you." But this voice is not the truth. It's your old standard fighting for survival. Every time you level up, your subconscious will resist because it wants to keep you safe, comfortable, and familiar. But growth isn't about comfort. It's about pushing beyond your limits. Safety has never produced greatness. So you must train your mind to recognize that voice not as truth, but as a signal. It's a sign that you're on the verge of a breakthrough, stretching beyond your previous boundaries and moving toward growth. And when that voice appears, you take action anyway. This is how you silence the inner resistance, not by arguing with it, but by moving through it. You show yourself that you're no longer governed by the fear of failure, judgment, or discomfort. Every time you act in alignment with your new standard, you weaken that voice, rewire your identity, and reinforce your new normal. With each action, you give yourself evidence that you are no longer the person you used to be. As the evidence stacks up, your confidence grows, not the loud, flashy kind, but the quiet confidence rooted in integrity. This is the confidence that comes from knowing you are who you say you are and trusting yourself to follow through. Real confidence isn't built on external validation or results. It's built on action and alignment. It's the confidence that comes from knowing your behavior reflects your standard. And this kind of confidence is unshakable. The real reward of raising your standards isn't just improved results or stronger habits. It's the person you become in the process. It's the individual who stops settling for less, who stops making excuses, and who decides that nothing less than your best is acceptable. Once you've raised your standards, built the structure to support them, and reinforced them through action, a new layer begins to emerge. This layer reveals the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. Raising your standards doesn't eliminate that gap, it illuminates it. It shows you how far you still need to go, and that realization can be uncomfortable. But discomfort is a gift. It offers clarity. It shows you the space between your potential and your current performance, between what you say and what you do, and between who you are and who you're capable of becoming. That gap is not a punishment, it's an invitation. When you lean into that discomfort and stop avoiding the truth, you stop pretending that you've reached your peak. And it's in that space that the true transformation occurs. And it's where your growth begins. The power of self-respect and the impact of high standards. When you stop avoiding your own reflection, something powerful begins to unfold. You start reclaiming your power. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself, you stop weakening yourself. Most people don't fail because of external circumstances. They fail because of self-deception. They tell themselves they're doing their best when they're not. They convince themselves they're committed when they're not. They blame external factors to avoid confronting what's happening inside them. High performers, however, don't play that game. They are brutally honest with themselves, not to tear themselves down, but to build something real and lasting. Truth becomes the foundation of their transformation, so they begin to call themselves out, not with judgment, but with ownership. They notice when they start slipping, when their standard begins to bend, and instead of rationalizing it away, they hold the line. In doing so, they develop a trait that most people never develop: self-respect. When you raise your standards and live by them, something shifts within you. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to believe in yourself, not because of external praise, but because you know deep down that you are aligned with your highest self. This self-respect leads to true power, because when you respect yourself, you stop needing validation from others. You stop lowering your standards to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for wanting more, doing more, and becoming more. The realization is this: you've been carrying power within you all along. It wasn't outside of you, nor was it waiting to be found. It was waiting to be activated. And the key to unlocking it is your standards. What you demand from yourself, what you expect from yourself, and what you refuse to tolerate from yourself will shape the world around you. As you begin living at this higher level consistently, your world will start to reflect it. Your relationships will change because people treat you the way you treat yourself. When you start honoring your word, following through, and living with clarity, you attract people who do the same. You stop tolerating one-sided relationships, disrespect, and the need to chase people who don't show up. Your new standard creates a filter through which only those who match it can enter your life. Your environment will change as well. You'll stop spending time in places that drain you, and you'll stop feeding your mind with negativity. You'll design your life to support your growth, not because someone else told you to, but because you've decided that your environment must align with your evolution. Your time becomes sacred. You no longer waste hours on distractions or say yes to things that don't align with your mission. You'll begin to see time not just as minutes on a clock, but as the fuel for your future. Once you realize its value, you'll protect it fiercely. Your habits will shift too. They'll stop being things you have to do and become things you get to do. Now, you're not doing them to escape pain or impress others. You're doing them because that's who you are now. The person who shows up, follows through, and leads themselves. And here's the most powerful part. When you start living with higher standards, you begin to influence others without even trying. Your transformation becomes magnetic. People will notice your growth, your consistency, and your unwavering commitment to yourself. And in turn, they will be inspired to raise their own standards. The power of self-leadership and the journey to higher standards. When you begin to raise your standards, people start to notice. They feel your energy without you needing to preach, force anything, or seek recognition. Simply by being who you are, you raise the standard in every room you enter. You become a leader not because of a title, but because your life speaks for itself. Your consistency, clarity, and conviction communicate far more than any words could ever do. As a result, people will either rise with you or move out of your way. But this kind of leadership starts with self-leadership, because no one will follow someone who cannot lead themselves. Leadership is not about perfection. It's about commitment. It's about rising after falling. It's about owning your growth and refusing to make excuses. When things get tough, and they will, you won't collapse. You won't lower your standards to match your circumstances. Instead, you will raise your effort to meet your standards. You will adapt, persist, and continue, not because it's easy, but because you've decided that quitting is no longer an option. When you live with high standards, life doesn't necessarily get easier, it gets clearer. You begin to see what you used to overlook, how much time you used to waste, how many excuses you made, and how often you gave away your power for comfort, convenience, or approval. This awareness can sting initially, but it is a powerful gift. You start to see all the ways you've been holding yourself back, your patterns, your rationalizations, not to beat yourself up, but because truth always precedes growth. If you want to reach the next level, you must confront what is real. Not the stories you've told yourself or the filtered version, but the full, unvarnished truth. Where have you been cutting corners? Where have you been lying to yourself? Where have you been choosing ease over excellence? You can't correct what you won't own. Most people are stuck, not because they lack capability, but because they refuse to face the truth. They think avoidance will protect them, but it's actually the very thing keeping them stuck. Your standard is forged in those hard conversations with yourself, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. There's no applause, no rewards, just you and your decisions and the standard you've chosen to live by. The people who live at the highest level do not negotiate with their standards. They don't need an audience to show up. They don't need praise to stay disciplined. Their reward is internal. It's the quiet pride that comes from knowing they're doing the work whether anyone sees it or not. This kind of pride, this quiet self-respect, is priceless. It doesn't fade. It doesn't depend on anyone else. It stays with you and grows inside of you. Over time, it becomes your strength, your fuel. But it only comes when you refuse to lower your standards. When you stop adjusting your expectations based on your mood or measuring your commitment by how you feel. Instead, you start measuring it by your ability to do what you said you would do. Every time you follow through, you reinforce that standard. Every time you keep your word, you send a message to yourself, we're not going back. And with every act of consistency, you anchor in your new identity. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes natural. What was once a struggle becomes a habit. What required effort becomes effortless. This shift is possible through repetition, because repetition shapes identity. Repetition makes your new standards real. However, repetition requires patience. This is where many people fall short. They expect immediate results. When they don't see change quickly, they assume it's not working. But nothing is wrong. Change is happening internally first, and that internal transformation always precedes external results. If you can trust this process, if you can continue showing up, doing the work, and honoring your standards, even when the results are invisible, you will eventually reach a point where the results are undeniable. People will notice the change. They'll ask, what's different? But by then it won't even feel like a transformation. It will simply be who you are. It will be your new normal. You won't feel like you're trying anymore because it will feel effortless. You'll have become the person who consistently lives at a higher standard. The power of raising your standards, a transformational journey. When you begin living at a higher level, it's because you built it, one action at a time, one decision at a time, and one standard at a time. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most people don't want to admit. Most people already know what they need to do. They don't need more information, a perfect plan, or someone to hold their hand. What they need is a higher standard. When your standard rises, you don't make excuses. You get creative. You become resourceful. You stay up later, you wake up earlier, you eliminate distractions, you stop wasting time, you figure things out, not because it's easy, but because your new standard won't allow you to settle for anything less. This is the power of raising your standard. It activates your potential. It forces you to evolve. It reveals qualities you never knew you had, but it does something even more profound. It eliminates options. When your standard is excellence, quitting is no longer an option. When your standard is growth, staying stuck is no longer possible. When your standard is integrity, excuses lose their grip on you. That kind of clarity changes everything. You stop making decisions based on how you feel. Instead, you make decisions based on who you are. When your decisions align with your elevated identity, you become unstoppable. You've always had the power to change your life. It was never about lacking resources, waiting for the perfect moment, or getting permission from someone else. It's always been about deciding once and for all that the standards you've been living by are no longer acceptable. That decision, that moment of clarity, is the key to everything you want. From that point forward, you draw a line in the sand and say, this is where it changes, this is who I become now, and this is the new level I hold myself to. From that day on, no change lasts unless it's supported by a new standard. No breakthrough can sustain itself without a new baseline. Transformation becomes permanent only when your identity, discipline, behavior, and expectations are all aligned. And you don't get there through willpower alone. You get there by raising your minimum standards, by shifting what you consider acceptable, by refusing to return to the level that once felt normal. You raise the floor, not just the ceiling. When your standards are low, you might experience moments of greatness, but they won't last. The moment pressure hits, fatigue sets in, or motivation fades, you'll fall back to your default. This is what most people call failure, but it's not failure, it's simply a return to old standards. The key is this: when you elevate your baseline, your standards become the foundation upon which every future success is built. It's this unwavering commitment to self-leadership and continuous growth that allows you to not only perform well in moments of strength, but also persist through difficult times and rise every single time. Remember, the life you want begins the moment you raise your standards and make a commitment to yourself. You have the power to design your destiny. So go ahead, raise the bar, and start living the life you were meant to lead. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about making the moment perfect by living at a higher standard. Your future starts with a decision. Make that decision today and never look back. The new version of you is waiting to rise. Once you set the standard, there's no going back. So take that first step and watch how your life transforms before your eyes. Success isn't about external rewards. It's about becoming the person who can handle them. Raise your standards and everything else will follow. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for things to be perfect. The time is now. Take control and elevate your life to new heights. The choice is yours. Live by the old standards, or rise to the challenge and create a life that reflects your highest potential.